Hey guys, this is Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
The ML Sports Platter back with you. All over the major platforms like Spotify, Google, Apple, Stitcher, Deezer. You know the deal. Download, subscribe, leave feedback, and a 5-star review. I'm on Twitter, at Mike L. Sports, and ML Sports Platter on Instagram and Facebook as well. We are brought to you by Stanley Law Offices, Bryant and Stratton College, the Vince Segura Consulting Group, and our good friends at Ken's Auto Detailing. If you're in and around Route 11 in North Syracuse, Cicero area, you got to stop by Ken's Auto Detailing. They're right there in Cicero. And my goodness, man, you get that inside-outside wash, the wax, the chrome, you name it. And every single time you drive away from Ken's parking lot, you literally feel like you have a brand new car. Ken's Auto Detailing on Facebook. Go see them. They can do the X's and O's, the A's to Z's, you name it. They get it done. The best car wash, the best detail you'll ever have. It's the best one I've ever had. Ken's Auto Detailing is the official detail shop of the ML Sports Platter. Super pumped up to bring onto the program a guy who covers the St. Bonaventure men's basketball team. You can get him on Twitter at JP Butler, the number 10. The beat man for the Bonnies, Olean Times Herald, oleantimesherald.com. JP Butler. JP, buddy, how are you, man? How's your summer?
Mike, as always, thanks for having me. Honestly, it's become one of my favorite pastimes, and anytime I get the opportunity to be here with you, I certainly enjoy it.
Well, that means a lot. Obviously, you know I respect your work as well, so terrific to have you back. Before we get into some Bonnie stuff, off-season, upcoming season expectations, and man, are there expectations this coming year. What is your feeling on how name, image, and likeness will affect St. Bonaventure men's basketball and the Atlantic 10?
You know, it's a good question, and that's something, I think we're kind of starting to dive into right now, right, in terms of news and, from a story standpoint, that's the kind of thing you want to see now. When it, for me, it's like when a big sort of national thing happens like this, and obviously in the last few years, there have been quite a number, of those things as college basketball really starts to change,
Yep.
In terms of the landscape and transfers and now this whole name, image, likeness thing. My first thought is, okay, how might this affect or not, or apply to, what's going down here with the local, Division I school, not even just the men's basketball team, but just having a Division I program, in your backyard. So, my thought is that, now I'm curious to see, sort of what exactly those rules are, what can happen, what can't happen, and now right out of the gate here, will we see something? I was joking with a coworker before the holiday, and I said I wouldn't be surprised if we came back from the 4th of July holiday, and, sometime this week or next week, we see some kind of announcement that, like a Kyle Lofton, sort of the face of the team now, captain, a rising senior.
Right, signing at Applebee's from 1 to 2.
Exactly. Or
4 Mile Brewing, he'll be here from 2 to 4.
Signing or an advertising.
Sure.
He's going to be in a Schultz
Sports Locker,
sales
something.
and leasing commercial. He's going to be in a Sports Locker commercial. I would think that, and again, for a place like Bonnet, it's probably going to be smaller in scale, right? It's not going to be what this first-team All-American in Kentucky will have at his disposal, but I still think that we'll see something, to that effect, those local commercials, some of the key stomping grounds that you just mentioned right there. I think we'll probably see some of that in place before the season even starts.
There's no doubt. And by the way, I actually have a feeling, and I could be wrong, but as this thing moves on, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, I actually think it's going to benefit schools, players, non-Power 5 more than Power 5. And I say that because if you're Bonaventure in the A-10 and you are recruiting a guy, let's say he's a 3 or 4 star recruit out of Pennsylvania, and they've got looks at Penn State. They have a look at maybe Temple. They have a couple, low-end hanging fruit type of thing, maybe at the ACC level. Maybe there's a couple of MAC schools, a UB, whatever the case may be. Maybe there's a Big 12, like an Oak State in there somewhere. And let's say that they aren't going to be able to play at those other places for at least 2 years. I mean, play, not be a reserve 3-5 minute. I'm talking about starting, getting 15, 20 minutes into 30 minutes into 38 by a senior, that growth type of a thing. They can't get into that world until they're at least third year, maybe even fourth year. And when they go there, because of that, they can't become a household name in town. Well, guess what? Look over to St. Bonaventure University. You might be able to get there, start right away, and get those deals immediately and cash in 150 grand over 4 years, and you've got room and board, and you've got tuition, and you're playing D1 basketball at a pretty darn high level in the A-10. JP, I'm telling you, that's a hell of a selling point if you can tell somebody that, and they're the starting point guard of the team, and they're a freaking superstar making money. That's I don't know, that sounds pretty good to me, even if you live in Olean.
Yeah, and it does, and it'll be interesting to see over the course of time. To me, it's how sort of the balance going to go between what's important now, before all of this name, image, likeness stuff happened, and at a place like Bana, that was playing time. Yeah. That was being, playing in a competitive conference, having an opportunity to be a star, having an opportunity to be a big fish in a little pond kind of thing. And we know, and I've seen it, covering these guys, how important it is to a Kyle Lofton to be able to come in, have the opportunity that he did, have 24/7 access to a gym, be able to just go and shoot and work out and play all the time, anytime he wants. He doesn't care about a lot of those other things, so-called distractions that may come from this. So to me, it'll be interesting to see what becomes more important now with like a Lofton who's so focused on being a great player and who has goals professionally. Is he now? I have to think everybody is sort of at least intrigued or wants to sort of see what might be out there in terms of making some money. I mean, that's just, human nature. Yeah. But how important is that part of it to him versus staying the course in terms of the player side of it? And so that'll be interesting. What's the bigger selling point? What's more important to these kids coming in? The fact that you've got this opportunity, after a couple of years, if we see, these guys have averaged sort of making this amount of money by doing these local commercials and appearances and autograph sessions and things like that, versus this is how much they played and what they've actually done on the court and what they've accomplished as a team. Because that's, sort of the crazy undertone to this whole thing is it's happening. These crazy changes are happening at the same time that Bana is trying to prepare for one of its, maybe more important, memorable seasons of all time. So where's the balance between those two things? And that'll be interesting to see how it plays out and how that affects what type of recruits and kids you get.
This is the most, anticipated season of Bana hoops since when?
Our lifetime. Probably our lifetime.
Probably. Because even
think about it, when you think the fact that they're already coming off an NCAA appearance,
correct,
and what they bring back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the next closest for our lifetime probably would be that 2000-2001 year when they were coming off of almost beating Kentucky. They lost the seniors and all that, but they had Kevin Houston transferring in. They still had Bremer. They had Prado. They still had Pete Van Passen was a senior. And that was a year going in, but nothing like top 15 or whatever. It was still, man, they're coming in. Hopefully we can make the tournament. I mean, Bana alums, I don't know if you've been reading what they're thinking, but it's, man, Lofton, Welch, Oshun, the transfer portal, Holmes, everybody's back. I mean, we could be a Sweet 16 team, and then everybody coming out. Sports Illustrated, The Athletic, ESPN, it's top 15, it's top 18, it's top 20. So I ask you this question. Can they handle the expectations?
I mean, that's the question, right? Going into the season, applied more to any Bonnet team, like I said, in our lifetime, because there were expectations going into, those early 2000s years. And there were huge expectations going into that Jalen Adams and Matt Mobley senior season. I mean, before this year, that was probably the most, the highest expectations just from the very, very start. Even going into this year, obviously there was the uncertainty with COVID, but just still how they still had, that team had a lot to prove, going into this year. Now it's as large as it's ever been. And when you start throwing the words Sweet 16 and preseason top 25 and those types, I mean, those are, Mike, you know it, and this is sort of the key to the whole thing for me. Those are words that don't get thrown around here.
Yeah.
It really, again, in our lifetime, they haven't been since the initial sort of golden era of that 60s and into the 70s. That's the question. Can they live up to the fact that now more than ever before, they're breaking down, sort of the door for what we even thought would be possible with this type of program at this small a school in this sort of landscape and time with college basketball, where obviously things are so much different from where they were 50 years ago in terms of recruiting and what's important and television and now all of this other stuff happening. That's where they're at now, where they've already accomplished so much, right? Under Schmidt, winning A-10 championships, making the NCAA tournament, to the point where you think, okay, there's got to be a ceiling there. And now their next sort of accomplishment here is breaking down what that ceiling, what we thought even possible in the first place. The fact that we're talking about this being a team that's probably going to be in the top 25 to 20, maybe even to start the season. The fact that they're a runaway, league favorite going into the year, and the fact that if they don't at least win a game in the field of 64 or more,
right,
that it could possibly be considered a disappointing season. That's a lot. That's a lot for one team. That does have to be the goal, though. That's the one box that this group of guys needs to check, is actually winning a game in the tournament proper. They got an NCAA win 3 years ago in the play-in. Can they get one in the round of 64, get to 32, and then from there, anything can happen. That's a lot. They embrace it. Now the question will be, can they actually meet those standards, those lofty standards?
You know what, though? As a fan, as an alum, bring it. I want it. I want this. I want people to be like, damn, Bonaventure, on the mat. Now, they may go to the tournament losing the first round again. Hell, they could go in and not handle the expectations, have a really bad year, have a couple of bad freak injuries, and the whole year goes right down to you-know-what. But going in, bring it. I want this. I want to be talked about as a top A-10 team. I want the expectations, man.
Yeah, and it is a different feeling, because as Bonnet fans, you're used to being the underdog. Even again, going into an 11-12 with Andrew Nicholson or 18, it was tempered a little bit from the standpoint that, there's the possibility of making the NCAA tournament, but not to the level of it would be a crazy disappointment, if things didn't go a certain way. That's where they really are kind of this year. Again, just given the fact that they've already made it, they've got everybody back. They have maybe the A-10 preseason player of the year back in Lofton. The things are sort of coming together in a way. You factor in what this revamped bench, might be able to bring to the table. Put all those things together, it really has created a sort of an unprecedented, situation. But if that also, born from that is a different kind of excitement, than we've ever had before, even in some of those other years. And it is fun. It's amazing to see that this type of thing could be possible again at a small, school like Bana and a small community like Olean, where your team is being viewed as, preseason number 16 in the country by ESPN.
It's incredible.
So it's a lot, but it's going to be, and again, no matter how it plays out, and even this team, does have some things they need to prove. Maybe we could get into that here in a second. Obviously, they didn't really have much of a non-conference last year, so they didn't have those opportunities against those power conference programs and big out-of-conference games the way they're going to have this season. That non-conference is shaping up nicely. They're that Ironman sort of group last year was kind of given those breaks because of COVID pauses and things like that. They won't necessarily, it's going to be more of a gauntlet, this year. We'll see how they handle that. And, and again, it was sort of circumstantially in that LSU game, they lose Dom Welch. But again, they ended up not being all that competitive for a team that came in as, the A-10 champion. So they're going to need to, prove that, they truly can play with and beat those teams and roll through the A-10 the same way they did last year under entirely different circumstances. Now you're going into places like VCU and Dayton with packed houses where it's going to be more difficult to win. So there are those things in place, but man, is it going to be exciting to see what they can do with it.
I mean, I'm thinking to this point to JP Butler, our guest here on the ML Sports Platter, Bonnie's men's basketball beat man for the Olean Times Herald. Get him on Twitter. Just the RC jamming again, but the RC is jamming in its highest when they're good. Like it's one thing to say, oh, Lambeau Field, Cameron Indoor, all these different places. Oh my goodness, you don't want to go and play there. Oh, it's so. But the team has to be good, because if the team isn't good, people aren't going to the games. They're not packing the place corner to corner. Those Reds are going to be full. The students are going to be losing their minds. People are going to be hungry in general to just go do things this sports season. And oh, by the way, they're probably going to go out to dinner and they're probably going to drink a few extras, right? So all those things are going to happen. JP, that place is going to be a freaking zoo this year.
I mean, and you know how it can be just sort of naturally. But again, talk about, unprecedented. Here you have a situation where they're coming off an entire year off. They didn't get to see these guys play in person at all last year. And sometimes I forget about how weird that must have been for everybody, because I was still able to actually go to most games. Now, there were some road games I didn't go to just because of the nature of things. But I was at all the home games, and I was at those games at the end of the year, going from Richmond to Dayton for the A-10 championship game to Bloomington for the NCAA tournament. So I still saw the team play in person, and a lot of it was what I would, kind of see and experience anyway. Mm-hmm. But I can't imagine how weird it would have been to see this team go have this kind of season, not see them in person.
Yeah, so kind of like the Bills, really,
With a year off, how much you're chomping at the bit after a year off, but now coming in to celebrate what they accomplished last year. And so if it's that home opener where they raise that banner and give out the championship rings or whatever they're going to do, that place is going to be going absolutely wild for that itself, and then the actual expectations of this season on top of it. I mean, I can't imagine if ever there was a year, and maybe it can't happen anymore because it's not the 60s where you just turn, a blind eye to such things. But if ever there were a year where they could actually break that attendance record or jam people into the aisles and break every fire code in the book and those kinds of things, this would certainly be it. I mean, there's just no question about that.
Let's break this down then, this roster. I mean, if they were to make their the deepest they can go, and I don't know what that is because we still have a whole season. You have preseason. There's injuries take place. You got non-conference, in-conference. matchups, all the stuff that goes on, the long haul of getting there, and then getting in the bracket, which might very well be the hardest thing to win in sport. I mean, winning games in the NCAA tournament is extremely difficult, and a lot of it's matchup driven. Are they going to get hosed somewhere? Probably, because it's Bana.
Right.
But what element needs to take place, do you think, JP Butler, for this team to go the furthest it can go? And I don't know where that is. I don't know if it's the tournament. I don't know if it's winning 1, winning 2. I mean, look, if they win 3 or 4, you won't be able to find me. But like,
a lot of people.
Yeah, right. But how far? Okay, the Bonnies can go as far as they can if, right? Like, finish that sentence.
Well, I think they can go further this year if they just are able to get a little more from their bench.
Okay,
I mean,
so it's a depth thing.
So at this point, I think these starters have been here together for some of them all 4 years now. Holmes 3 years, and then this will be Attaway second year. We more or less know what those guys are kind of bringing to the table. We know what their strengths are now. Their weaknesses. Can they get a little better there? Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely. Like Oshun has to finally, I think, be able to take at least one more little step up offensively. And just as a whole, maybe you got to be a little more. A little better 3-point shooting team. Now that is something they did get better at as the year went on last year. Now you got to pick up where you sort of left off there, but you more or less know kind of what you're going to get from these guys. They're a great defensive team. They may have some off nights offensively. There's still some inconsistencies there offensively, but now it's, can you get that little extra push off the bench that they didn't necessarily get last year? I mean, those 5 starters had to do everything.
Oh yeah.
And we've seen how the recruiting has gone. I mean, these are the types of things over the summer here that, I mean, not only is there just this huge expectation for the season, but the summer has been, this off season has been so enjoyable too from a recruiting standpoint. Probably one of the more notable overall recruiting classes they've had. When you talk about bringing in a pair of ACC transfers, a JUCO All-America, and then even down to things like, getting a team in that TBT field. I mean, that's going to be an exciting July, middle of the offseason thing to do for Bana fans. But anyway, so, it's still not going to be a thing where, okay, now all of a sudden Schmidt's going to play 10 guys. He's just not going to do that. That's not what they do. It just never really shakes out that way. There may be a freshman or 2 who just aren't ready. There may be a kid who up and leaves. You never know. We've seen that, the last couple of years where now all of a sudden, you are going to play that, probably no more than 8 to 8.5 guys. Yeah. But whoever those 3 coming off the bench, and to me, like this Linton Brown, this JUCO All-America, one of the best shooters at the JUCO ranks coming in, he certainly seems like somebody who should be able to come in and contribute right away. Now, if that's coming in off the bench and knocking a couple threes down a game, boom, there's 6 more points than you were sort of getting off the bench. They've got this Koulibaly, the big Pitt 6'8", big Pitt transfer.
I think he's going to be really good.
If he's giving them some, I don't know how much of a scorer he's going to be, but they don't necessarily need that out of him.
Yeah, big body, play some defense, slap around some guys.
Block and shots.
Sure, yeah.
Really sort of opening things up for Shun to maybe take that step offensively. Now, I don't know how accurate this comparison is, but I sort of look at it almost as like an Andrew Nicholson to Quan Cook element in 2012. Cook wasn't great skilled player, but he was a big, chiseled, massive body who could really sort of open things up for Andrew to kind of do his thing, doing the dirty work, so to speak. I think he could be that type of guy. This Kadri Adams from Wake Forest.
I like him a lot, man.
And give them something. Already hearing good things, about him on campus. So 3-ish of these guys have to be able to do it this year. And, so they were a really good team defensively last year. That's sort of what they rode, all the way to the NCAA tournament. And they weren't great offensively, but let's say they averaged, by the end, let's say they were averaging 66 to 68 points a game. basically with just those 5 guys.
Yep.
If they, between 8 of them, 7 to 8 of them, and they can get that little extra punch and average 72, 73 points a game, and now you're a pretty good team offensively and still a great team defensively, that's where, I think you can actually live up to what's being talked about here.
All right, final thing for you. I don't know a lot of information on this. I've poked around. I haven't gotten anywhere on it. Heard different things. Don't want to rush to conclusion. Don't want to blame people. Don't want to criticize people where I don't where I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, because I don't know facts. I don't know what the hell happened. Can you shed any light on why Tim Kenny is not the AD at Bonas anymore?
Not a whole lot of truly, necessarily on the record confirmed sort of things.
Because that's what it seems to be. It seems to be like this wild, kind of wonderment.
Well, and I'm trying to be sort of careful into how I approach this, but I think it's sort of more or less okay. It does. Now, I was in touch. My coworker, mentor, Chuck Pollock,
yep,
who taught sports writing down at Bona for a number of years, and develops kind of those maybe friendships in the journalism department or teacher, professor friends down there. We're in touch, and we did, and again, most of it was sort of off the record. It's not stuff we necessarily went into in sort of news stories for the paper and things of that nature. But we were kind of given just this sort of broad, picture of just a lot of little things. Professionally speaking, in the office speaking, wasn't, I know there was a lot of speculation of, to do something, wrong outside of, the job. Those kinds of, I don't think it was really anything along those lines at all. Was it something that he, necessarily wanted to, he opted, to want to leave because of things that maybe he wasn't happy with. I don't think it was either of those two things. I think there were a lot of little things behind the scenes where there was an element of not seeing eye to eye on decisions and how things were going to go, personalities clashing, words, maybe here and there sort of being changed, that type of thing that all just sort of culminated in the fact that his contract was set to expire, at that end of May period anyway, where they thought, what, maybe it would just be better to use this opportunity to kind of part ways, which even still, now that was surprising to me from the standpoint that usually the better you are at your job and the more you accomplish, the more sort of leeway you have to maybe be sort of difficult, right? Now, if he wasn't getting stuff done and kind of being like that, then it's like, okay, yeah, let's, move on here. But for somebody who seemingly, obviously on the surface was accomplishing so much from a facilities standpoint, and obviously where the men's basketball program is now, being able to extend Schmidt twice.
Sure, money coming in, endorsements, sponsorships, campus growth, lacrosse, yeah.
The field stuff,
men's lacrosse, sure.
Renovations to the Riley Center. I mean, you look, there's a number of things. There's no doubt about that. That's a black and white fact.
Yeah.
So to me, the confusing, the surprising thing was, you would think that somebody in that position would have a pretty long leash and leeway in terms of maybe being difficult in those things, personalities and decision on maybe getting along with everybody, whatever it is. Because you know what, if they're going to keep accomplishing what they are, we can deal with it. We can live with it, right? I would have thought it would have continued in that direction, but apparently it was enough. And then the extra element of they're already looking for a president.
Right.
Now they want to invite the fact that they're going to be looking for a full-time president and a full-time athletic director at the same time. That seems like something they wouldn't really want to have to mess with right now. So it was surprising, but apparently it was enough, just the behind the scenes, all the little things sort of added up to where it was enough for them, I guess, that they said, you know what, it's just going to be better to move on.
Interesting. JP Butler, Olean Times Herald beat writer for the Bonnies men's basketball team, oleantimesherald.com, and on Twitter, at JP, the number 10. JP, thanks so much. I can't wait to see you, bud.
Mike, I love it, man. I just have the best time talking to you. Our conversations are always so great. And, if there's seriously an opportunity now that things are finally a little better and open and you can go places and sit down, if there's a time that I can get out there to do a lunch or something like that, I'd love to do it.
The ML Sports Platter is brought to you by Bryant and Stratton College. It's a great time to be a Bobcat right now. A bunch of new academic programs, including their brand new nursing program, academics, excellence, and athletics at Bryant and Stratton College. Visit them online, bryantandstratton.edu. And if you're in and around Central New York, they have two great locations campus-wise on James Street in the city and in Liverpool. We're also brought to you by the Allen Angus Pubs, CNY Electrical, Prestwick Golf, and the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group. Log on today to vcgtransforms.com. That's vcgtransforms.com. Become a better leader both personally and professionally with the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group. Log on to vcgtransforms.com and find them on all the social media platforms as well. I'm Mike Lindsley. This is the ML Sports Platter. Hit me on Twitter at MikeLSports. Big time thanks to JP Butler once again. And as I always tell you, enjoy the games.